Hey Wranglers, welcome to the Neon Wrangler Sideshow, and that's what we're talking about today is sideshows. But first, do the YouTube thing, you know what that is. Anyway, sideshows started around 1843 and were started by General Tom Thumb, and they went to about the 1940s before the public kind of lost interest. I shouldn't say interest, were kind of pushing back against them because of the connotations that they had. Now, there's different kinds of performers in a sideshow, and the distinctions are pretty important. And I'll tell you the ones who suffered the most from from the outlawing of the sideshow. Now, some people call them freaks. I'm not going to call them freaks. I'm going to call them performers or entertainers. Sideshow performers, sideshow entertainers. Even though they can call themselves what they like, but I never even liked that term freak when I was a kid. Now, the first kind of performer you have is you can see up here with the bearded lady, the elephant man, and this woman with the elephantitis in her foot. They were what they call born performers. Okay, they were born with some kind of physical oddity that made them interesting to look at, and people would pay money to come see them. Okay, I don't think the elephant man was in a circus, but the people would come to see the exhibitions, I believe, and so this is an example of born performers: bearded lady, elephant man, lady with the big foot. This is a pinhead, and that's what they call them, and that's not a derogatory term. She's actually in a movie in this picture and made money in this movie. I believe the movie was called Freaks, and she was a born performer. Okay, and she had a good sense of humor and was known to be a very kind type person. So far, these are or actually four examples of born performers. Here's another example of a born performer. Now, back in the day, in the 1940s or in before that, you couldn't really fake this. You had to be legit, and this is obviously a two-headed woman, and we have those even today. There's modern examples of this, but people would pay to come see her, and the others other acts in the sideshow, and that's how they made their living. Now, this is a very tall man, very short man standing next to each other so that you can get the full effect of, of the image. This makes the image a lot more dramatic when you have a really tall guy standing next to a really short man. It wouldn't be as dramatic if you had a normal dude standing next to a short guy or vice versa. But these are born performers as well, and that includes little people and some of the others. They were born performers, and they still are. Hey, a good example is Wee Man. I mean, he's not only a born performer, but he's what they call a working act. And his size doesn't matter at all. He's doing just as good as anybody. In fact, he might even have some advantages the other guys don't have. Now, the next kind of performer we got is what they call the made performer. This guy is a made performer, meaning he tattooed himself up, he split his tongue, he modified his body into something that people would want to come see. And this is the Lizard Man, and people would pay to come see Lizard Man and some of the other made performers out there. Now, made performers aren't illegal; they weren't outlawed because these people do this to themselves. They choose to do this to themselves. But the born performers were the ones that got the short end of the stick, no pun intended, because a lot of them couldn't make a living another way, and they made a really good living in the sideshows. Now, I'm sure early at some points there were exploitation and maybe, who knows, maybe some abuse, but in most of the history of them, they made good livings doing what they did. And when that law started coming along in the 1940s, a lot of them were like, well, don't do this. Our bodies, we can do what we want, and let us make a living with how we were born. This is I see it almost like a professional athlete thing. Instead of seeing somebody with superhuman abilities, they have different types of abilities that make them interesting and make them be able to make and allow them to make a living in different ways. Instead of putting a basketball through a hoop, they can just exhibit themselves and maybe do a trick here or there, and they can make really good money just by the way they were born. And that's my opinion on it, and I think that's their opinion too. But yeah, a lot of them went out of work after that. Here's a working act. Okay, a working act is whenever you do a stunt, basically, or it could be a dangerous stunt, or it could be something like this, where the strong woman is holding up the guy with the barbell. I thought that was pretty cool. We've seen, a lot of strong men, but this is the first strong woman I ran into, so I thought, oh, this is more interesting. So I put her up there. But yeah, this is This is what they call a working act, and this is a working act. This is a snake dancer. She's a contortionist. I think a good idea if you want to see a modern version of this is there's an Imagine Dragons video I think called Thunder, where you can go out and see them do this sort of contortionist dancing, snake act type dancing, and I'd like to see her do her snake dance. I think it would be really interesting. But it's just another working performer. You could go see the snake lady along with the two-headed lady, along with whoever else was in that particular sideshow. And here's another maid performer. This is Enigma. I've met him, and he doesn't just do stand there and get gawked at. He can do some stuff. He'll put hooks through his lips, and he'll was suspended with weights. A lot of them do that kind of stuff. They exploit their piercings and do that kind of thing. You can see the hooks with the weight. He also plays trumpet, so good entertainer there. All right. Anyway, now we come to the fakes, which I think is pretty interesting. In a lot of sideshows, you'd have fake creatures. Okay, that they would basically taxidermists would put together and they'd exhibit, like this in particular. In this case in particular, it's the jackalope. Okay. I lived in Colorado. Now, up in Wyoming, the jackalope was a very popular mythical little trick that the taxidermists would do. A lot of bars and restaurants would have jackalopes in their store, inside, and everybody got a kick out of them looking at the jackalopes. And I have a funny story about jackalopes. I knew a couple, and they were a really, really nice couple. The man was really funny and his wife was really sweet. Well, they got married and they had kids. And he was a construction worker. And one day he comes home and he asks, hey, have the kids been playing outside? It's like first warm day to go out there and play. And she goes, oh no, I'm not letting them go outside. And he's like, well, why not? She goes, well, the jackalopes might get them. And he just started laughing because several years before that, he had told her that jackalopes were real. And she still remembered this and believed it. And all this guy is a little stuffed bunny with some antlers on him. But no, she believed the jackalopes could get the kids and hurt them. So it's a good story. Anyway, that's the punchline. Next, we've got the Japanese monkey fish dude, and this is supposed to be like the body of a living mermaid. Not the attractive mermaid that we would see on the Little Mermaid in Disney, but this is was displayed a lot, as the Japanese monkeyfish man or whatever. I can't remember exactly. I know it was Japanese monkey and fish were all kind of combined together. However, this thing's not real at all. You can see wires in his fingers. You can see a wire running down the middle of his body. His head is stuffed with something that keeps the x-rays from penetrating it. I don't know what that would be, but they could cut it open and find out, I guess. Probably clay or something like that. But so this is the Japanese monkeyfish guy. So if they could get an attraction like this, they'd put it together and say, hey, we've got the thing that's half cow and half horse or whatever the hell they were going to make. Now, most sideshows had 10 acts, usual. The usual thing was 10 slots, 10 acts, that they would try to put in there and for displays for people to get their money's worth. Sometimes they only had one, and it would be something like this, like they'd have the body of a mermaid or the body of a gargoyle or something, that they had put together, and that was the attraction. You went and saw that. Or it would be something like the Bonnie and Clyde death car. It could be something like that, from history or something along those lines, that would be the attraction, come to the circus, and the sideshow part is Bonnie and Clyde's death car. Now, that was the past, and now in the present sideshows, I've seen a few, and they're mostly they're working acts and they're maid acts. They do all kinds of wild stuff with hanging weights off their piercings, and I saw one of them put a steel plate on his stomach, and they took a circular saw, and would grind on it for some reason. I don't know what the trick was supposed to be, other than it looked like he was shooting fire out of his gut or something. Not like they were trying to trick you that he was doing that. It was just sparks and fire everywhere, and I guess he was supposed to endure it or something. And so I've seen some of these shows, and they're interesting. They are They're fun, they're interesting, and they're not that long. And you usually get a chance to talk to the entertainers afterwards, which is pretty cool. That's the present. That's okay. That was the past of sideshows. That's the present sideshows. Now I'm afraid for the future of sideshows because it's already upon us. The future of sideshows is here, and you can see one anytime you like. And it's very unfortunate. While all these other performers are very self-aware, very careful with what they do, very canny and very they know exactly what they're doing. They're used to doing this. They're professional performers who made a living doing this, and they had advice from other professional performers, whether they were made acts or they were board acts or they were whatever they were, working acts. And now we have more freaks out there, and I'm going to use that term now, than we've ever had before, and the sideshow is never ending. And here's the sideshow: TikTok, the never-ending sideshow of TikTok. You can get on there and you can see as many people who are completely non-self-aware doing the stupidest stuff you're ever going to see. Some of it's funny, some of it's not, some of it's just pathetic, but most of it's pretty sad. Most of it's cancer, I'd say. And so here's some people, some TikTokers, trying to get their minute of fame or whatever it is. I don't even know how long a TikTok goes. I think it's a minute. So here's some of them. This is the pathetic new future of sideshows. You can get online and act a fool and do anything you want. Here's some more. This guy's painting giant eyes on himself, and you see the lovely ladies on either side of him. That was another part of even the old sideshows. They had two different kinds of shows for the ladies. I mean, with the ladies. They had one where the ladies were dressed and they would dance in kind of a burlesque kind of thing. Then they had another one where the ladies would strip, and you could pay money to see that. I'm sure you paid a lot more, but it's the same kind of thing going on today. You're seeing the same exact sort of thing. We're getting, except these people aren't making a living doing it, and they're, it's just, I'm sorry. It just, the world would be a better place without that app. Anyhow, thanks, Wranglers, and I will see you at the next roundup. And so work on your contortionists. I want to see one of you do a snake dance. I'd love to see that. You guys take care. Bye-bye.